Nicolas Cage playing a Dracula will get my butt in the theater, but sadly, this movie was disappointing. Hey guys, welcome back to the video. In this video, guys, my spoiler-free review for Renfield. This movie follows a very simple plot. Renfield is the assistant to Dracula and basically has to do his every bidding, but Renfield wants to live a normal life and gets caught up in a bunch of big city mishaps. I went into this movie expecting more of a fantastical Dracula vampire movie, but sadly, that's not really what this movie is at all. Now, before I get into all of my thoughts on Renfield, let me know what you guys think of this movie in the comments down below. And while you're down there, if you're new in here and you enjoy all my movie and TV show reviews, reactions, and breakdowns, make sure to subscribe to notifications so you don't miss any time of new video or go live. Both don't waste any more time. Let's get right into it. I'll get into my gripes about the story specifically later in this video, and if you want to skip around, you can check the timestamps in the description down below. But I want to start off with something I actually really enjoyed about this movie, and that is the action. It definitely takes a page from the John Wick movies with super handheld, close-up action, but it also kind of fumbles on the action end just because there's a lot of wild cuts. Like there were 2-3 different takes that they used per action sequence when it was supposed to look like a one-take scene. They just shake the camera, give it a little bit of motion blur in post, and then stitch the two clips together. It does not seem like these action sequences, though they did seem very intricate and planned out. It did seem like they were stitching multiple takes together when that wasn't the initial plan, because usually when they shake the camera, add motion blur in post, and stitch the clips together, that's not a good sign. But the action is gory as hell. It is full on gore on gore on gore, and I love that. I'm one that just loves a bloody time in the theater, and this movie gave me exactly that. I don't want to get into any spoilers, but there's one shot where they implode a dude's body from the inside out, and there's just blood everywhere, carnage everywhere, and I thought that was absolutely entertaining. But sadly, it doesn't go much further than that. Again, the action, very John Wick inspired, from the gun scenes to the hand-to-hand to even some of the fantastical fight scenes with Dracula included in them. I just feel like they don't push it as far as they could, especially since they introduced the fantastical side of Dracula. They also do a power set of like 2 or 3 cool things that Dracula can do, but again, they never push further than that within the action sequences. In addition to the absolutely insane amounts of gore in this movie, this is camp to the max. I just got into campy stuff like For Real with the Evil Dead movies, watching just older movies in general. I'm definitely more used to the campy nature of films, and I used to be one person that like didn't really like it. I was like, that's not what a movie needs to be. You know, it needs to be a little more serious. It needs to pick whether it wants to be serious or funny, but movies can be both, and this one does that to an extent. There's a lot of serious scenes with Dracula, but this movie as a whole is a comedy. Again, I have issues with that in the story as a whole, which I'll get into later in this video, but within the serious moments, but also the funny, silly moments, there is a lot of camp, and it worked really, really well for me. I love the way that they utilized the campiness, but they stop utilizing it when they most need it in the actual story. A lot of times what this story ends up being is super campy, fun Dracula time, and then it completely switches tones to something that I just don't really find entertaining. And I'll talk about more about that later, but if you enjoy camp and you enjoy that side of the fun spectrum, I think you'll enjoy the movie. It's not that I didn't enjoy this movie, but watching the movie, as I'm watching it, I could be like, okay, they needed to add this there, this there, this there. It was very easy for me to pick out parts, and it's not like those parts didn't exist in the movie. They were already there. They just needed to expand upon it. And an example of that is the campiness. The campiness is really, really cool. They have these super old versions of Dracula, and it's like black and white. It's a different aspect ratio. It's very cool. It's very creative. It's very campy. They also have these super cool practical effects that are really, really well done. Nicolas Cage is in this really cool practical suit in the first part of the movie, I'd say, where he's like rebuilding all of his skin, and it's a super cool suit, super detailed, very gory, but it looks really, really cool. A lot of other great blood effects. All of that is amazing. But then when you head into the actual story, they completely switch tones, and they basically just take away all of the fun Dracula campy stuff, and they try to make it like a serious crime thriller. But that brings me to what I really just did not like about this movie, and that was the story, but also the pacing, which inherently goes with this story that just doesn't work for me. I don't think it's good. Maybe it's just not for me. Maybe other people enjoyed it, but it's basically a crime movie at the end of the day. And I didn't really expect that, and I don't really like that. I was going into this movie, I watched one trailer, and that was the first one where Nicholas Hoult's character is basically going through that counseling group, and then you see Dracula at the end where he's like, I'm Dracula's assistant or whatever. And it's like, through that, I knew that obviously we're not going to be focusing on Dracula the whole time, but there's another side character, the police officer side character. She has more screen time than Dracula. And it's like, what are we doing? Are we focusing on Renfield and his relationship with Dracula, or are we focusing on Renfield's impact on this crime thriller story? It feels like the latter for 90% of this movie. Even from the very beginning, the crime element introduction just wasn't really for me. But the thing is, I enjoyed all of the elements that were there previously, from the first kill that Renfield makes, which is really, really sick, or maybe it's not his first, his second or third, but there's this insane kill, and it is so cool. It's so gory, so creative, to be honest. It is just so well executed overall. But then when you get to the police stuff and then the backstory on Awkwafina's character about how her like dad died, and she wants to check out, like, she wants to like take down this mafia and this crime organization. They're trading all these drugs. It's like, it's boring. I want Dracula. I want blood, gore. And we get blood and gore. We get cool action sequences. We get really creative camera work. And again, I'm not downing on any of the action side of it, but when you step away from the action, which there's probably like 4 big action sequences in this movie, I think 3 or 4, once you step away from that, you're left with nothing. This movie literally delivers, to me at least personally, nothing. I didn't really talk about the performances as a whole, but Nick Cage does a great job as Dracula. I never doubted that for a second. I knew from the first trailer that he was going to be amazing. He was going to totally embody this character. Nicholas Hoult, he's cool. I just didn't really care for Renfield's dilemma about leaving Dracula. They never made it important enough to me. And from the first trailer, I was so convinced that I was going to love this relationship, and it was going to be heartbreaking, funny, amazing. Like, it was just going to be every spectrum of the emotion. They were going to build it up throughout the film, and it was going to come to a great climax. And this movie basically, they have somewhat of like an arc in the beginning, they do a whole crime thriller thing, and then they get back to Dracula at the end. It's not well executed at all. As a whole, I think I went into this movie expecting something completely different than what we got, and not in a good way. Overall, I'm going to give Renfield a 6 out of 10. As always, let me know your rating and what you thought about this movie in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.